Um, so when I go through my portion, there will be some time I'm going to try and draw on a whiteboard. So if you want to watch, I hope it'll help. So it's not like a PowerPoint, but rather I'm just going to be trying to draw some stuff out to illustrate what I'm trying to present. So I'm going to read the translation one more time, read the purport, and then go through the other verses all together, and then come back and give my commentary on it. So again, the translation is: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janārdana, Lord Kṛṣṇa, is the form to accept the result of sacrifice. If he is not satisfied, then one's labor for advancement is futile. He is the ultimate self, and therefore one who does not satisfy him certainly neglects his own interest. Purport. Brahma is deputed as the supreme head of universal affairs, and he, in his turn, deputes Manu and others as, and I forgot how to pronounce this, I looked it up, Chargé d'Affaires, something like that. Anyway, I looked it up. It means when you have an ambassador and they delegate some sort of responsibility to a lesser diplomat, that's called a charge d'affaires. So Lord Brahma, he represents personality of Godhead, and then Manu is like a lower diplomat on his behalf, ultimately on behalf of the personality of Godhead. So, and others as chargé d'affaires, if I slaughtered that, sorry, but something like that, of the material manifestation. But the whole show is for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahma knows how to satisfy the Lord. And similarly, persons engaged in the line of Brahma's plan of activities also know how to satisfy the Lord. The Lord is satisfied by the process of devotional service, consisting of the ninefold processes of hearing, chanting, etc. It is in one's own self-interest. Oh, it says self-interest. Anyway, it should be self-interest. Self-interest to execute prescribed devotional service, and anyone who neglects this process neglects his own self-interest. Everyone wants to satisfy his senses, but above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence. Above the intelligence is the individual self, and above the individual self is the super-self. Above even the super-self is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu Tattva. The primeval Lord and the cause of all causes is Śrī Kṛṣṇa. The complete process of perfectional service is to render service for the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of Lord Kṛṣṇa, who is known as Janārdana. I forgot to reveal my messages, so if something important, you can type it in, and I'll try and keep one eye on that as well. All right, so today, again, it's 4 verses, so that was 15. Here's 14. Manurvacha adeshahang bhagavato varte mani vasudana stanam tvinan janani hi prajanam mama cha prabho. Śrī Manu said, O all-powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now please tell me, let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me. Text 15. Yad oka sarva bhutanam mahimarna mahambasi asya udharane yatno Deva Devya Vidiyatam. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, because it is the dwelling place of all the living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord. Purport. The great water mentioned in this connection is the Garbhodak Ocean, which fills half the universe. And then we have text 16. Maitre uvacha parmeshtiti papang madhye tata sanam abekshyagam katam enang samuneshya iti danau diyachiram. Śrī Maitreya said, thus seeing the earth submerged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time to how it could be lifted. Purport. According to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here are of different millenniums. The present topics are of the Sveta Varaha millennium, and topics regarding the Chakshusha millennium will also be discussed in this chapter. And then the last verse for today, text 17. Shrijato me kshitir bharbi plavyamana rasangata atrarakyam anushreyam asmabi sarga yojitai yasyahang hridayad asang sa isho viddadatu me. Translation. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by a great deluge and has gone down into the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. Purport. The devotees of the Lord, who are all confidential servitors, are sometimes perplexed in the discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. They have full faith in the Lord, and He paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'm going to read these 4 verses one more time so we can get the continuity. Starting from text 13. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janārdana, Lord Kṛṣṇa, is the form to accept all the results of sacrifice. If He is not satisfied, then one's labor for advancement is futile. He is the ultimate self, and therefore one who does not satisfy Him certainly neglects his own interests. Śrī Manu said, O all-powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now please let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth which is merged in the great water, because it is the dwelling place of all living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord. Śrī Maitreya said, thus seeing the earth merged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time as to how it could be lifted. 5 verses. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by a deluge and has gone down into the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. Although short purports, of course there's probably 100 different things that we could talk about. I hope that what I've just chosen 2 points. Mother Umilis directed us to talk about 1, so I'm going off the deep end here. I'm going to talk about 2. One is with the first verse. We see here that it says, so yesham na tushto bhagavan. So tushta means satisfaction. So if we don't give satisfaction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Srila Prabhupada really goes out of his way to point out both in the word for word and the translation and the purport especially, how Yagya Lingo Janārdana, what that means. So Yagya Linga, a linga is a form. So it says Yagya Linga, the form of sacrifice. I was thinking, so maybe a good analogy of this, one analogy might be just like accommodate. When you think of Cupid, you always think about this angel shooting an arrow into somebody's heart, some beautiful angel. So as soon as you see that icon, you immediately think of romance, love, lust, etc. That is Cupid, Kama. So that's what you say, that would be Kama Lingam. But Yagya Lingam then is the form of Lord Vishnu. And specifically, Janārdana is Lord Kṛṣṇa. Any Vishnu Tattva is meant for sacrifice, but especially the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa. And that is emphasized here when it says, Tesham Shramo Syapartaya. So we know arta. Arta is something that's valuable. It's got some substance. That's worth going after. It's actually valuable to yourself. Whereas anarta is useless. So this is hyapartaya. So shramo hyapartaya. That means that it's completely useless. So we know a verse from the beginning of the Bhagavatam that's very much like that. So, and it says yad atma nadrita swayam. Nadritam is an interesting word. I looked it up. It's great respect, something that you really, someone or something that you really, really honor because it's so valuable. But yad atma nadritam swayam. One who does not satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is neglecting his own self-interest if he doesn't worship the Lord. That's the meaning of this verse. So there's this beautiful bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, Hari Hari Vipale Janamo Goainu. So pala is a fruit. So Vipale Janamo Goainu. Even though we have attained this human form of life, we simply wasted it. So Manusya Janama Paya. The human form of life is very, very valuable because it's been attained after millions and millions of births, and therefore millions of years have passed to get this very valuable human form of birth. But it's vipale, it's useless if Radha Kṛṣṇa na bhajiya. We don't worship Radha and Kṛṣṇa, and specifically Narottam says Janiya Shuniya. Even though we've heard about this, we know about it, we've experienced to some degree, but still we are so foolish, still haven't taken advantage of this. And he says this is Vishakainu, which means Vishakainu is to knowingly drink poison. So it's suicide. If one accidentally drinks poison, then he can be forgiven. But if he tries to kill himself by knowingly drinking poison, that is most condemned, punishable. So similarly, if we've heard about the worship of Radha and Kṛṣṇa, but still we're not taking advantage of it fully, then this is vipale, it's useless. So the verse I was going to quote, which, because here it says Shrama Hyapartaya, useless labor. So similarly, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 8, says Dharma Spanustita Pungsang Vishvakshena Katasya Notpadiya Yadirai, and then it says Shrama. Shrama means labor, just like it says here, right? Shrama, labor, yeah, same. So Shrama, he, eva, kevalam. Kevalam means only, completely, 100%. So it's saying that whatever labor we perform in this lifetime, the human form of life, if it doesn't make our attraction for hearing the message of the Bhagavatam ever more increased, then that's completely, 100%, absolutely, no question about it, completely a waste of time. Shrama eva hi kevalam. So the typical example of a foolish being who doesn't act in his own interest is that of a mudha, an ass. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out how everyone is self-interested, but because we're covered by Maya, we think that to satisfy the senses of this body will give us satisfaction. But our self is not the body, so we always come up disappointed, stacey, and disappointed. So very, very foolish. Actually, we should not try and satisfy our so-called self, the body and the mind, but we should try and satisfy the needs of the spirit soul. And that is done by satisfying Atma, the supreme soul. And even beyond the supreme soul, or the super soul, Paramatma, Vishnu Tattva, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original personality of Godhead, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa. So that was what was really being pointed out in this verse, that we have to satisfy the original personality of Godhead, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, for our own benefit. Otherwise, we're completely foolish. So the example is that of the ass. An ass is categorically the most stupid animal that there must be. So in the Panchatantra, there's many stories about animals, talking animals and birds and stuff like that. I really like these stories. So there's one story about an animal by the name of Karala Kesha. So Karala means protruding sharp teeth, and Keshara refers to a mane, like long hairs. So who's got a big mane and sharp protruding teeth? It's a lion. So his name was Karala Keshara. So Karala Keshara, he had a jackal that was always his attendant. And as you know, jackals are very clever animals. They're kind of like a species of canine, I suppose. Anyway, some sort of a dog. And they hang around lions so that they can get the scraps from them. So this king of the forest, or the jungle, always had this associate, jackal. But one time, Karala Keshara, he was fighting with a very mighty elephant, and he got really injured, so much so that he could hardly even walk, but to speak of hunt, and he crawled back into his cave. So for many, many days, the both of them were starving, both Karala Kesha and the jackal. So finally, Karala Kesha said that you have to do whatever it takes to go out and get some food, because the jackal was saying, "Oh, my lord, we're both starving." So he said, "Go out and find an animal that I can kill and bring him back here." So being smart as he was looking all over the jungle until he came to the very edge of the jungle, and he saw an ass who was nibbling on the grass, and said, "Oh, this is a perfect candidate." So he came up and spoke very respectfully to me. He said, "My dear uncle, what are you doing here? You look so thin and forlorn." So the ass said, "Well, I work for a terrible master. These human beings, they beat me, and they give me hardly anything to eat, just a handful of grass. So I have escaped, and even though I know it's very dangerous here by the edge of the jungle, I'm still attracted to the fresh grasses, so I'm eating." He said, "Oh, you uncle, don't worry about this. I can take you to the king of the jungle, and he will give you full protection. You can live there very happily, away from any of these human beings, and the grasses there are so sweet and succulent, and they look just like emeralds, green like emeralds. You have to come with me. So he was really attracted. So the both of them went to the cave where Kṛṣṇa was. And when Kṛṣṇa saw, he was so hungry, when he saw the jackal bringing some food, he couldn't wait, and he jumped and tried to kill the ass, but because he was so weak, he actually missed him, just fell on the ground. So the ass, of course, ran off, and then the jackal said, "My lord, how in the world, you're so weak that you couldn't even kill an ass when I brought it to you?" So he said, "You should have waited till I got close enough, and then you could have attacked him. So I'll go back and try and bring him back, but please wait until he's close enough." So it was agreed. So the jackal, because he was very familiar with the jungle, he found the ass, and he said to the ass, says, "Oh, uncle, where are you going? Where are you going?" So the ass said, "What did you do? You brought me to this cave, and there was some ferocious animal. What kind of an animal was that? I barely escaped with my life." "No, no, uncle, it's not at all what you think. That was a she-ass. She's been away. She hasn't seen a male ass in years, and when she saw you, she was very attracted to you and wanted to embrace you, but you ran away. She's just waiting for you to come back." And he was thinking, "Oh, actually, I am pretty handsome. All right, so let's go back." He was thinking about her the whole way. So finally, when they came to the cave, they got close enough, and then Kṛṣṇa jumped on and tore him apart and ate him. So he lost his life. But he was so weak still, the lion, that he said, "I have to go to the river and take bath and get refreshed, and I'll come back. So whatever you do, watch to make sure no other forest animals disturb this carcass." So while Kṛṣṇa was gone, the jackal was thinking, "I am so hungry, I can't stand anymore. I have to take something to eat." So he ate the ass's brains. And then when Kṛṣṇa came back, he roared, "What is this? I see that the brains are gone. How dare you contaminate this meal?" And the jackal said, "No, no, no, no. This ass has no brains. If he had any brains, how could I possibly talk him to come back for a second time?" And he lost his life. And then, of course, the lion said, "Oh, yeah, you're actually right." Oh, and then they had a good meal together. So this is an ass. An ass is such a stupid animal that it wastes its entire life laboring for nothing. That's called Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. So in this human form of life, understanding that we are not this body, we can never become satisfied through trying to satisfy the senses of the body. That will make us happy. Our true interest is in satisfying the Supreme Self. If still after hearing this, we've not taken advantage of it, then that's Yad Atma Nadrita Swam, not in our best interest. So that was the first half of the class. One point there. Now I want to go to one other thing. So I'm going to make a disclaimer at this point, and that's that I hope the rest of this class will be of interest to you. There was many things I could have talked about, but I'm just going to select one other, and that's on text 15. Again, the translation is, "O Master, the demigods flee the attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, because it is the dwelling place of all living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord." And the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in this connection, the great water is the Garbhodak ocean, which fills half the universe. So I decided to take this one other point and then talk about this, the Garbhodak ocean. So we know the description about the Brahmanda. It's like an egg shape. and in the middle, that's where we are. Outside this is the coverings of the universe. So half of the universe is filled with the embryonic fluid of carbon dioxide emission. So half the universe is filled with water, then all the planetary systems are above that. So how is it that when we look through our telescopes that we just see stars and planets? We don't see the Garbhodak Ocean. So I wanted to give an example from an article that I recently read in Quantum magazine. This is a magazine that's for reports on recent developments in mathematics, physics, and the life sciences. And there was an article in April of this year, April 21st, 2016, and it was entitled "The Evolutionary Argument Against Reality." Very interesting. So we have the Garbhodak Ocean. So where is it in the universe? How come we don't see it? We hear descriptions of it, but we can't find it. So how come? Well, here's an article in Quantum magazine that the scientists themselves, these are who we are directly opposed to, the evolutionists, but even a cognitive scientist by the name of Donald Huffman, he uses evolutionary game theory to show our perceptions of an independent reality must be illusions. So just to summarize this article, we perceive the world through sights, sounds, textures, tastes, etc. And we rely on these perceptions to be accurate portrayals of what is outside in the world. They are, in fact, our brain's best guess of internal stimulus of an external reality. So how do we know what we're perceiving is actually right? It's what our brains are interpreting is outside of us. So this Donald D. Huffman, he's a professor of cognitive science at the University of California, Irvine, and he's studied for 3 decades perception, artificial intelligence, evolutionary game theory, and the brain. And his conclusion is, I quote, "The world presented to us by our perceptions is nothing like reality. What's more, we have evolution itself to thank for this magnificent illusion, as it maximizes evolutionary fitness by driving truth to extinction." So this, as it goes on in the article, goes on in the article that his theory, it straddles the boundaries of neuroscience and fundamental physics because the brain, it obeys nothing more than ordinary physical laws. But how is it that we experience the world as a first-person conscious experience? Because, of course, modern physics, modern science perceives us as nothing but a physical entity who thinks that we are a person. But if that's true, then how is it that gross matter became conscious? This is what's called as the hard problem in science, because there's no explanation for it. So quantum physics states that quantum systems, this is a little bit heavy to read, but if you could just try and pay attention here if you find it of value. Quantum systems don't seem to be definite objects localized in space until we observe them, whether we are conscious humans or inanimate measuring devices. Experiment after experiment has shown, defying common sense, that if we assume that the particles that make up ordinary objects have an objective observer independent existence, we get wrong answers. The essential lesson of quantum physics is clear. There is no public objects sitting out there, some pre-existing space. As physicist John Wheeler put it, useful as it is under ordinary circumstances to say that the world exists out there independent of us, that view can no longer be upheld. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to attempt to do is show on a whiteboard here, like kindergarten for dummies. Sorry, not anybody else. For me, I'm a dummy, and trying to explain what's quantum physics are and what's being presented here. Why they're saying that reality, as we perceive it, can no longer be upheld. There's no such thing as an objective reality. That's the premise. So let me get my little drawing pin out here and try and explain this. So, quantum physics. Okay, so here we have what they call a particle. Now, of course, and I tried to point this out. I have no independent verification because I don't know who to ask, what devotees to ask. But it would appear what we just read a few chapters back about the measurement of time in the atom is that the paramanu, the atom, is the smallest unit. There is nothing smaller than that. So as far as subatomic particles, you can't even see an atom. You can see a representation of an atom on an electron microscope, but that's only an interpretation of it and gives you a visual representation. That's not the actual atom, if you ever see pictures of these. Anyway, so let's use the same language that's being used in physics. So let's call these particles, and then there's subatomic particles. So if there's a particle, you got protons, neutrons, electrons, etc., and they orbit just like the planets do. They orbit around each other according to what kind of particle it is. And then there's the electrons that jump from one orbit around the protons and neutrons to another. And when they jump from one energy state to another, that's called a quanta or quantum leap, because it appears it's not that they go from here to there as a path, but they just appear. They appear from here to there with no time or distance elapsed. They just appear from one place and then they appear in another place. That's what it appears to be. That's why it's called a quantum leap. So let's see. That's the first point, and then let's erase that. Then there's been experiments which are called the double slit experiment. So let's pretend we're going to have a little game here. So this is going to be a gun, and shooting out of the gun is some balls. They're like tennis balls, let's say. So you make up a screen like this, and in the screen you have two slits like this. So when the gun shoots a tennis ball, sometimes it hits and then it ricochets back, and then you keep on doing that long enough, and eventually one's going to go through the slot, and then another one's going to go through the slot. So if you take this screen and then you turn it, you go from the aerial view, the overhead view. Let's erase all this. It would look something like this. You've got, your screen right here with a break, and then here's the continuation of the screen. So let's pretend like this gun, instead of shooting out tennis balls, it's shooting out single electrons, whatever electron is. They're calling electrons particles. They're calling it sometimes a wave. So when it shoots, sometimes it hits, but sometimes it gets through. And when it gets through, there's an apparatus at the back, and it monitors when it hits. So it goes ping, it monitors. So as these things go through, it monitors on the back. So what happens is that after you shoot so many electrons at this thing, this apparatus, it starts to make a pattern that looks something like this, all these little dots. I hope I'm drawing this well enough so you can see what I'm talking about. So you see how there's like a lot of dots like right in front lined up here, and they get lesser and lesser here. So what's interesting about this is that there's more spots that it's hitting than the electrons that were being emitted. So they speculate upon what that could possibly mean. I'm trying to go through this as fast as I can and hoping that it's intelligible. So again, here's the apparatus, and here's what it looks like. So that represents a wave pattern. It's called a interference pattern. So if you have a wave, you think about a wave like in the ocean, you've got water. So here's a peak, and then the low part is a trough. And then if you got another type of wave, it comes this way, and then it comes up, and when they meet each other, they cancel each other out. So if you took an aerial view, I know it's a little messy here, but you can just use your imagination. Let's say if you dropped a pebble in the water, and you have concentric circles that come out from the middle, and then if you drop another pebble in the water, other concentric circles come, and then what happens is eventually these two concentric circles, they'll start to merge together. They'll hit each other. So let's just erase that. So the same thing happens when you have electrical fields, magnetic fields, or when you're shooting electrons out of an electron gun. So let's say we have a wave here and a wave here, and as they start to come out, they start to meet, and then you see what happens here? Here, where they meet, this would be like the peak, and then here would be the trough. And then over here, they would cancel each other out. So if you had that same apparatus up here, where it measured, or rather where it shows you where the electrons hit, then again the pattern would be like this. There would be a bunch in the middle, and then it would start to be less as it goes off to the side, less and less, and then it would gradually decrease. So this is a representation of this. It's an interruption pattern, or it shows that it's acting as the energy of a wave. So it's not actually like a particle, it's more like a wave. And the interesting thing is that these, even though it comes out like particles like this, the number of particles is greater than that of the number of electrons that are emitted. So the conclusion is that when electrons hit the back of the apparatus, they're not in a fixed position, but they're in as many positions as possible. So let me just erase this. Again, I hope these visuals are helping. So the example, there was an equation that was presented by a fellow by the name of Erwin Schrödinger, and he was able to mathematically simulate the actions of how these electrons would act, and by that, there's all kinds of benefits. You were able to have the whole science of electronics, and, how electricity works, etc. So it's very accurate as far as how electrons work. So it would appear like this. This is the example that he gave. If you had a box, this is a famous example. If you had a box, got a lid right here, and you put a cat inside of it. It's supposed to be a cat. Use your imagination there. And then inside of the box, you also put some radioactive material that had a little bit of radiation in it, and then you shut the box. You wouldn't know if the cat would die or if he would live. He's got like a 50-50 chance to live or die. But until you open the box, you don't know if he's living or dying. But the way that quantum mechanics works is if the cat was an electron, he would be both dead and alive simultaneously. And only when you open up the box would you see if he was dead or alive. So in the box, he's in all the possible states, both dead and alive. Only when the observer looks inside does he find out what state he's in. Is he dead or is he alive? I hope that's not too confusing. So it's like this. There's, I'm going to draw the apparatus again. So we got these electrons shooting out. You've got this thing at the back with all the measurements. But as soon as a human being or even an instrument looks and tries to see what's going on, the electrons, instead of them forming this kind of a pattern, where it's like a wave like this, which I tried to show before, that represents a wave. Instead of a wave, let me get my little eraser here. Instead of a wave, as soon as a human being or an instrument that is produced by a human being tries to look at it, it doesn't turn to be a wave at all, but it turns back into what's considered to be the function of particles, which line up straight. You remember, because this thing had these slits, so it's only allowed to go in certain directions. So it forms these two very precise directions here. Oh, is anybody? I'm hoping that everybody can see my illustration, but anyway, just got a chat saying they can't see. We were supposed to be seeing illustration of what you were talking about. Why only see you talking? Huh. You should be seeing what I'm drawing. Anyway, I hope others can see what I'm drawing. So the thing is that when somebody is looking at electrons, they appear to be particles, but when somebody is not looking at them, they appear to act like waves. Two different things. So the point is that how is that possible? So the theory is that anything that can happen does happen, all simultaneously. So how is that possible? So the theory is, again, these are material scientists saying that their vision is the whole world is made up of these atomic, subatomic particles, which is also Vedic truth, you know, the Paramanu Vad. And then what we perceive is on a much larger scale. So we perceive something different, but on an atomic, subatomic scale, it's very much different. So on a larger scale, we perceive objects, but on a smaller scale, these objects are just like waves of energy, and those waves of energy can form different structures in every possible way. So the theory is that there are many different worlds, but we can only perceive one world at a time. So because material scientists think that we're nothing but matter, therefore if other structures are existing simultaneously, that means other worlds are existing simultaneously. So therefore there's, according to them, carbon copies of universes, multitudes of universes, and then all other forms, structures, and activities are going on simultaneously that are every other possibility. So there's many other worlds, in other words. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So we have a little bit of an inkling about this. If even you think about how many energy waves are all around us. You know, there's microwaves and radio waves and telephone signals, etc. But unless you have the proper device, you can't pick it up. Just like if you have a real old cell phone, you can only talk on it. But if you have a newer smartphone, you can pick up not only voice, but you can also pick up data. So if you got the right kind of device, you can pick up two worlds simultaneously that you weren't. And if you had no device at all, you would just, be blind. You wouldn't even be aware there's all these radio waves, television waves, data waves that are all over you. So the world is like that. And this is a quote from this magazine, Quantum Magazine. They say, while neuroscientists struggle to understand how there can be such a thing as a first-person reality, quantum physicists have to grapple with the mystery of how there can be anything but a first-person reality. In short, all roads lead back to the observer, and that's where you can find Hoffman, straddling the boundaries, attempting a mathematical model of the observer trying to get at the reality behind the illusion. So I'm just going to end. Look at the time. Sorry, hardly any time left. I'm just going to end with trying to explain what he's doing. Is he's using game theory. Game theory is something that's used. It's a mathematical model which it measures probability between individuals, and it's used in economics and political science, sociology, logic, computer science, and biology. So you've got players or persons or agents, and then you have rewards that they're going to receive, and then there's rules for them to get those rewards. And you can use that kind of game analogy for all kinds of probabilities for how people are going to act, companies are going to act, countries are going to act according to the best interests of the whole. So according to evolutionary game theory, those that act in such a way for their own benefit and the benefit of their group, it's best if they don't see reality, but they only see a partial reality. So the example is given by this scientist, Huffman, is that it's just like if you have a computer screen, you have a computer interface, and let's say you have an icon that's for your mail. So the mail icon, like you got mail, email. So it's going to be a rectangular, maybe blue icon on your screen. So does that mean that your files, your emails, that's what they look like? They look like a blue rectangular icon? That's what the content is? No, it's not at all. But if you were to, it doesn't represent all of the electronics, the diodes, everything that a computer is made up of, what to speak of the hardware and all that stuff. If by that icon you had to understand all of that stuff, it would just get in your way. You want to just open up your email and send your pictures to your kids and your friends, get on Facebook and all that. That's what you want to use the interface for. You don't need to know about all the hardware and the software and everything in the computer. If you had to understand all that, it'll get in the way. So similarly, our perceptions of reality, as I was trying to relate from quantum physics, is that our perceptions are only of one dimension, but there are many, many other dimensions, even according to evolutionary biologists and physicists, but you just cannot perceive them. And if you did perceive them, it would actually, according to evolutionary theory, it would destroy the species. There's zero probability that such a species would survive. The ones that survive are the ones that narrow in their focus for survival, and they only see the world in one way. So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying that if we don't look in our telescopes and we don't see the Garbadoc Ocean, how come? According to modern science, even the evolutionists, they say that reality is not what we perceive. It's just what our brains interpret it to be. There's worlds that are beyond us that we just cannot perceive with our present instruments, either mechanical instruments or the life sciences, our eyes, ears, nose, etc. So that was my little presentation. I'm sure, somebody could have done a much better job at this, pick more devotional topics like that. But anyway, those are the 2 points that I chose. I did my best, Prabhus. I'm going to unmute everybody. If anybody has any questions or comments, please go ahead. I have to just see. Normal. I muted everybody, and I'll get rid of the visual. There you go. Okay. So anything? Anyone wants to contribute?
Ram, where did that story come from about the jackal, the lion, and the ass? That was interesting.
You know how that was a Panchatantra? Vishnu Sharma was a Brahmana only thousands of years ago, and he was assigned by the king, some country in India, to teach his two rascal sons who weren't interested at all in studying. He was really afraid that they were going to grow up useless. So
that's there's some speculation that actually that's the source of Aesop's fables.
Yeah. I heard on one lecture Prabhupada said that Aesop's fables comes from the Panchatantra.
Nice.
I think tradition.
That's good. I have to confess, I have a hard time understanding everything that you're trying to say with regard to quantum physics, etc. I really tried. I could see your screen well, but I guess I don't think I have much of a brain for it.
It's because I don't have a brain for it. I mean, I can understand basically what it is, but it's hard to describe it.
But somehow, because of your desire to communicate, it deepened my appreciation of how limited we are in our little world and how little of reality we can see. Especially you were describing how the one scientist was saying that, within this body, all we're seeing, all we're perceiving are like, electrical signals, etc., coming in. And what is outside of the reality we're perceiving may well be so different than what we're actually perceiving.
Yes, that's the point.
That was a point. I through your class, I got that point. And even though I didn't understand all the fine details of scientifically what you're showing, you were able, by Krishna's grace, to communicate and deepen my appreciation of the little world we're locked into and how important it is to bring in Kṛṣṇa with that lamp. Tesham evano karpatamaham agana jantamaha nashanet vibhavasto gyanadipena basvata, where Krishna says, out of mercy for them, I, within their hearts, with the shining lamp of knowledge, destroy the darkness born of ignorance. So we're really locked into a dark little box, and we really need Kṛṣṇa and Guru and the Vaishnavas to come in. And you definitely brought some light into my dark box, so I'm going to thank you for that.
What I was trying to relate is with one of the points of the article is that quantum physics has established experiments that are consistent that show that when you shoot electron particles through a certain device, it appears to be a wave. But as soon as you look at it, either with the device or a human actually tries to look at it, it turns into a pattern of a particle. So it appears like the introduction of consciousness changes how matter is structured. So your reality is different. It's not an objective reality.
Ramananda, do they acknowledge that they're being controlled by another consciousness that's observing them?
Some do. It's amazing, actually. I thought that all, there's just nothing but atheistic scientists out there. But there are, surprising number, it looks like, of scholars and scientists that they just cannot solve this hard problem about consciousness. How is it that we perceive, that we're experiencing? So it like opens them up to other ideas. Some will accept that, therefore, maybe there is a supreme being that set everything into motion or is controlling them. It's a wide range of people with different attitudes. But actually, I was surprised. I've been reading. I'm like part of a mailing list of these scientists and devotees who are, debating back and forth. And it appears that there is a community out there that are open to, admitting that they have no answers.
It seems a bit existential. Is there any idea that there's a place to go or a purpose? A structure,
No.
or it's just random? Everything's random.
Yeah.
And
I should not really follow what you're saying, but as far as what scientists and scholars, what their attitudes are, the range is from top to bottom.
Because one time I thought that if it was an observation that they could notice how cars, taking them to be animate objects or inanimate objects, they respond to different light patterns. When you put red in front of a car, most of the time they stop. And when you put green in front of a car, most of the time they go. And they've observed this repeatedly, even though there are malfunctions in the system where even though it's red, some of these cars go right through it. But they don't acknowledge that there's a driver that's doing it. They acknowledge that it's just the machine and the light. And the light hits the glass part of the machine, and it sets up a friction on the four wheels that slows the vehicle. And we've measured the friction. It produces a certain amount of heat, and this heat is being measured in, so, I mean, you can...
That's a wonderful example.
You can explain this whole thing from the aliens that came in and watched the civilization of these little metal boxes running around, stopping.
Yeah, that's really good. Madan, you got great examples. Simple, easy.
Ramananda.
Yeah.
Can I get this? Can you give me the screen? Could I run a video, a short video?
Sure. Let's see how we do this. Invite others. Let's see. Camera. This one. I'll figure it out because it's a new thing to
Okay. Well, while you're figuring it out, I'm going to say something. You reminded me of Irmela, some of Irmela's classes where she pursued a PhD, and all the way up to her dissertation, they're basically taking the hard stance that they know everything. And then as she gets closer to this PhD, suddenly they back off and they say, actually, we don't know much. It's kind of like an insider thing. And although there are Christian scientists, creationist scientists, there are, especially in biology, there's scientists that are theistic. And quantum physics is, it's, I don't know, for me, I don't get too excited about it. It's just, basically saying we don't know. So they even made a movie, What Do We Know? What the blip do we know? So Prabhupada, in his time, of course, it was a little while ago, the scientists were, one of the top targets of his preaching. He even took the BBT money that was going to the artists at one point, and he gave it to the Bhaktivedanta, scientists. And he wanted them to defeat, or make a strong presentation to defeat this materialism that's being pushed on everyone by the scientists. So I have a video.
Did you see
and
it?
Yeah, okay, start sharing. See if you see my screen. And then I'll run it. It's just 5 minutes. And this guy is he's a career research biologist, a scientist in the scientific community, and he sees a problem. And he's written a book, Setting Science, Science Set Free from Materialism. And he has 10 points, dogmatic points, that are all pervasive throughout the educational system, that the scientists have taken this belief system and made it, that they're saying this is reality. He articulates it so well in about 5 minutes that I'd like to run the video.
Okay. Does anybody see his screen? I gave him control, but
no. I'm trying to hit the start meeting, start sharing, and it's not working.
So why not send me the link?
Okay, I'll send you the link. Yeah, just to preempt this thing. How do I send it to you? By Skype or just by email?
No, it's right here in the message. Just put it right in the chat.
Okay, so this is a banned TED Talk. I didn't even know there were banned TED Talks. Evidently the top dog, the top guy in these TED Talks are ideas worth spreading, you know, has banned this, okay, because it's against orthodox science. So here, I'm going to give you the video, and you can run it.
Banned TED Talks may just be a way to get people to watch it.
I don't think so. Yeah, that's a good try, but I'm not buying it. Here it is.
Got it. All right. See here.
How are you doing today?
All right. Now let's bring it over here. Okay.
Does it have audio?
Yeah, but it.
What?
Let's get through the commercial.
The library.
Oh, give me a break. Come on.
And I'll be ready.
Will we hear the audio?
Skip. There you
Yeah,
go.
just go. Yeah, it'll give you. Skip the ad.
Okay. Now, can you see it?
I can see it.
No.
Good.
Pretty
Okay.
small.
Can
See
you
if I
Well,
can
I'm
make
gonna
it
make it
bigger.
full screen. Okay. Now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Now I'm gonna.
Okay.
I am going to try and be silent because I'm going to turn up my volume because you're going to have to hear through my speaker.
Okay.
Kind of echoey.
Okay.
I'll try and be quiet. Let's see. Play. Where's play? There we go.
It's an 18-minute video, just the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
We want to see. First 6 minutes.
Science delusion is the belief that science already understands the nature of reality in principle, leaving only the details to be filled in. This is a very widespread belief in our society. It's the kind of belief system of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. It's a belief system which has now been spread to the entire world. But there's a conflict in the heart of science between science as a method of inquiry based on reason, evidence, hypothesis, and collective investigation, and science as a belief system or a worldview. And unfortunately, the worldview aspect of science has come to inhibit and constrict the free inquiry, which is the very lifeblood of the scientific endeavor. Since the late 19th century, science has been conducted under the aspect of a belief system or worldview, which is essentially that of materialism, philosophical materialism. And these sciences are now wholly owned subsidiaries of the materialist worldview. I think that as we break out of it, the sciences will be regenerated. What I do in my book, The Science Delusion, which is called Science Set Free in the United States, is take the 10 dogmas or assumptions of science and turn them into questions, seeing how well they stand up if you look at them scientifically. None of them stand up very well. What I'm going to do is first run through what these 10 dogmas are, and then I'll only have time to discuss one or two of them in a bit more detail. But essentially the 10 dogmas, which are the default worldview of most educated people all over the world, are first that nature is mechanical or machine-like. The universe is like a machine, animals and plants are like machines, we're like machines. In fact, we are machines. We're lumbering robots, in Richard Dawkins' vivid phrase, with brains that are genetically programmed computers. Second, matter is unconscious. The whole universe is made up of unconscious matter. There's no consciousness in stars, in galaxies, in planets, in animals, in plants, and there ought not to be any in us either, if this theory is true. So a lot of the philosophy of mind over the last 100 years has been trying to prove that we're not really conscious at all. So the matter's unconscious, then the laws of nature are fixed. This is dogma 3. The laws of nature are the same now as they were at the time of the Big Bang, and they'll be the same forever. Not just the laws, but the constants of nature are fixed, which is why they're called constants. Dogma 4, the total amount of matter and energy is always the same. it never changes in total quantity, except at the moment of the Big Bang, when it all sprang into existence from nowhere in a single instant. The fifth dogma is that nature is purposeless. There are no purposes in all nature, and the evolutionary process has no purpose or direction. Dogma 6. Biological heredity is material. Everything you inherit is in your genes, or in epigenetic modifications of the genes, or in cytoplasmic inheritance. It's material. Dogma 7. Memories are stored inside your brain as material traces. Somehow everything you remember is in your brain in modified nerve endings, phosphorylated proteins. No one knows how it works, but nevertheless, almost everyone in the scientific world believes it must be in the brain. Dogma 8, your mind is inside your head. All your consciousness is the activity of your brain and nothing more. Dogma 9, which follows from Dogma 8, psychic phenomena like telepathy are impossible. Your thoughts and intentions cannot have any effect at a distance because your mind's inside your head. Therefore, all the apparent evidence for telepathy and other psychic phenomena is illusory. People believe these things happen, but it's just because they don't know enough about statistics, or they're deceived by coincidences, or it's wishful thinking. And Dogma 10, mechanistic medicine is the only kind that really works. That's why governments only fund research into mechanistic medicine and ignore complementary and alternative therapies. Those can't possibly really work because they're not mechanistic. They may appear to work because people would have got better anyway, or because of the placebo effect. But the only kind that really works is mechanistic medicine. Well, this is the default worldview, which is held by almost all educated people all over the world. It's the basis of the educational system, the National Health Service, the Medical Research Council, governments, and it's just the default worldview of educated people. But I think every one of these dogmas is very, very questionable. And when you look at it, they fall apart. I'm going to take first the idea that the laws of nature are fixed. This is a hangover from an older world.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
This is amazing. I really like to see the whole thing, but of course we can't do it right now. This is great, boy. You see, there are some smart people out there, and they're not, all these dogmatic scientists. This is really, really good. I'd love to see the rest of this. So thank you for sharing that. That's great. I'd like to see what the arguments are. Okay.
Well, he's got a book. He's got a book.
Yeah.
And it's PDF. You can download it. Just Google Science Set Free.
Oh, okay.
And you can download the PDF book, and right in the first page he gives those 10 dogmas.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it's a banned TED Talk, an idea worth spreading.
Wow. That's great. Okay.
I liked that too. Thank you, Vidagda. Ramananda, can you put the link somewhere where I can find it? Or email?
You got the chat. If you got the chat, it's right in the chat, but I can email it to you if you like.
I'm on the phone.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Email it to you.
And your presentation really, your presentations are just so wonderful. My daughter, and this comes from a very unusual place, my daughter called me and said, or actually she came over and said, you have to watch this movie. And I'm like, no, I don't watch movies here. And she said, no, you have to watch this one. And I was prepared for a comedy because it's got Jim Carrey in it. But it's called The Truman Show. And it's definitely about this, what we're talking today. It's a whole reality created just for him, and he has to break out of it. Anyway, it's worth watching even if you're a child.
Okay. All right, Prabhu, thank you very much for your kind attention. Really appreciate it. If there's nothing else, then all glory to Srimad Bhagavatam and all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhus.
Jai, all glory to
Hari Bol.
Haribol.